Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. It was all going according to plan. This is exactly what we've been saying. Even Matt Gaetz and the rest of the crew knew the entire time that they were never going to unseat Kevin McCarthy. They were just playing the game, and they're emerging from this thing massive winners. I mean, it's not even close. Leftoid heads are imploding, and when the left is suffering a collective meltdown at the future of the Republican House being extreme, when the leftist gaslighting efforts begin, you know that something good is probably happening. Well, that is exactly the case. Many people are arguing that Matt Gaetz lost. He tried and he tried and he tried, but he never stood a chance, and in the end, Kevin McCarthy won. The media, of course, is trying to convince you of that, but it seems as though Matt Gaetz has a very different perspective on the events that transpired over the last week and maybe a couple days. Matt Gaetz is now taking a victory lap, and he's quoted recently as saying, "I ran out of things that I could ask for." That pretty much tells you all that you need to know. So of course, let's talk about it. Let's talk about this massive W. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, take a look at this. Here we have an article from the Gateway Pundit. Quote, "I ran out of things I could even imagine to ask for." Representative Matt Gaetz on why he finally reversed course on McCarthy for House speakership. The suspense in the U.S. House of Representatives on Friday night was historic. At the end of the evening, Matt Gaetz held the cards and he eventually conceded in his efforts to withhold the speakership from Kevin McCarthy. As the 14th vote progressed, you could see a change in McCarthy's demeanor when Representative Matt Gaetz didn't vote. Suddenly, you could see McCarthy come to realize that he needed Gaetz's vote. Panic ensued. The vote concluded and McCarthy still did not have enough votes. McCarthy walked up and talked to Gaetz to no avail, and then fellow GOP Representative Mike Rogers got upset and started shouting at Gaetz, "You're finished," and had to be restrained. At this point, a vote was called by the McCarthy backers to adjourn for the evening. McCarthy would try to do something over the weekend to win the speakership, but suddenly, Matt Gaetz got up and said something to McCarthy. Melania Zanona at CNN reported on these events. Finally, the House clerk announced for the 14th time that no one had the votes to be speaker. Republicans moved to adjourn the chamber until Monday. As the vote timer counted down, 218 Republicans had voted yes, a majority that would have sent McCarthy home for the weekend and left the House in paralysis at the hands of Gaetz and his allies. But with less than a minute left to go in the vote, Gaetz moved towards the front of the chamber, grabbing a red index card to change his vote on adjournment. Gaetz walked towards McCarthy and the two briefly exchanged words. McCarthy then raised his hands and yelled out, "One more," as he triumphantly walked towards the front of the chamber to change his vote too. It was the GOP leader's final negotiation, capping an emotional roller coaster over the course of 4 days, as he was held hostage by a narrow faction of his conference. Dozens of Republicans followed McCarthy and Gaetz to defeat the adjournment measure, and McCarthy's victory at last was at hand. The 6 Republican holdouts all voted present on the 15th ballot, giving McCarthy a 216 to 212 victory to end the longest speaker's race since 1859. Representative Tom Emmer, one of McCarthy's top deputies, went up and down the aisles, telling Republicans on the House floor not to clap for Gaetz or Representative Lauren Boebert when they announced their votes, like they had for other holdouts who had flipped for McCarthy earlier in that day. Asked why he reversed course on McCarthy, Gaetz said, quote, "I ran out of things that I could even imagine to ask for." McCarthy expressed relief as he left the floor. "I'm glad it's over." A truly historic series of events. And so if people try to tell you that Matt Gaetz is the big loser in this whole thing, Matt Gaetz didn't only win, he won big. Quote, "He ran out of things that he could even imagine asking for." It doesn't get any better than that, and even on top of that, GOP neocon Alabama clown Mike Rogers has been totally exposed. Oh, and by the way, speaking of Mike Rogers, remember this? I mean, you better remember it. It's the 3rd time we play it.
Well, it's been public information out there that Mike Rogers threatened to say he's going to kick those of us off of any committees who dared to challenge the coronation of the speaker.
Mike Rogers, the neocon clown, who threatened Republican holdouts with committee removal. Well, let's just say that threat didn't exactly end very well or age very well. Breaking: Mike Rogers to step down from House GOP steering committee after ballot brawl. Rogers said the move would likely happen later this week and confirmed the plan on Monday morning, noting that his departure from the committee is not finalized and wasn't encouraged by fellow colleagues. He threatened other people with committee removal and then had to resign from his committee position in disgrace. You mean to tell me that Mike Rogers and Kevin McCarthy are the winners here? Absolutely not. Not only do they look bad, but they had to give over every single concession, every single thing that Matt Gaetz and the rest were looking and asking for. And most importantly, leadership accountability. Kevin McCarthy has to do what he promised, or a single member now can call a vote of no confidence and start a motion to have him removed from House speakership. Matt Gaetz is the winner here. I mean, absolutely based. He played them like a fiddle, and he got the job done. And he didn't get the job done for himself because none of this really benefits Matt Gaetz. If anything, it's going to make him public enemy number one from the neocon uniparty establishment, and certainly one of the top enemies of the leftist lamestream media. But he secured this massive W for voters who want to see things happen. And boy, oh boy, you know something good is happening. You know, it's all going according to plan when leftoid brains are imploding. I mentioned this earlier in the intro, but you mean to tell me that this is a massive loss for the Freedom Caucus? For the America First agenda? I don't think so. Far-left pundits are terrified of GOP House, complain that the GOP will end Biden's failed policies, end Biden's spending, and cost Hunter millions in legal fees. Okay, I don't see the problem here. Dave Jolie writes, with all the focus on the House rules being given away to the Freedom Caucus and all, this development below may be the most consequential, a new House committee to attack and shred the federal government, undermining confidence in millions of Americans in our self-governance. George Stephanopoulos sounds the alarm over McCarthy's win. It came with concessions to the most extreme members of his caucus. Prospect of 2 more years of brinksmanship over his hold on the office. The fiscal security of the United States and the basic functions of governing. Excuse me, the fiscal security of the United States? You know what gives me more faith in the future fiscal security of the United States? More than anything, the concessions that Matt Gaetz and crew were able to secure during these negotiation processes. The fiscal security. You absolute lunatic, George Stephanopoulos. What are you talking about? Democrats have plunged the nation into an inflation crisis with their irresponsible fiscal lunacy. The GOP establishment has essentially greenlit the whole project Destroy America's Economy, and finally America First patriots are standing in the way. And you mean to tell me that we should be fearful of fiscal responsibility and actual checks and balances and challenges to Biden's legislative and fiscal policy? You lunatic. These people are losing their minds. Fear-mongering because they won't be able to just spend money, gun-ho, trillions upon trillions of dollars buying votes in the next election cycle. Ilhan Omar complains far-right insurrectionists won over McCarthy during speaker battle. McCarthy just agreed to a deal with far-right insurrectionists that would hold the entire US and global economy hostage to extreme cuts to everything from housing to education, healthcare, social security, and Medicare. Hard to overstate how dangerous this is. Yes, how dangerous it is that the government is going to be spending less of your money. And you know, honestly, if you want all these fancy programs, then maybe run a more efficient government. Then maybe, just maybe, stop spending money on gender studies in Sri Lanka or whatever the frig that was, whatever country and nonsense that was. Stop spending tens of billions of dollars to Ukraine. Then maybe, just maybe, Republicans might be willing to have a conversation about reasonable social programs that help the most vulnerable in society. It's a win, folks. It's a big, big, big fat W. If George Stephanopoulos is fear-mongering over it, if Ilhan Omar is using insurrectionists getting a win as her main argument as to why this is a bad thing, well then it's probably not just a good thing, but a very, very, very good thing that these concessions were achieved. Republican voters were asking for one thing with this House majority. Investigations. Well, you got those. And an end to the reckless spending and the out-of-control Biden legislative agenda. And it seems as though you might be getting that as well. It seems as though Christmas might have came a little bit late this year because McCarthy doesn't have a choice. He has to govern properly. He has to stand in Biden's way, or it's only going to take one Republican holdout, one Republican representative to call a vote of no confidence if he doesn't make good on his concessions, on his promises. In other words, everything is going according to plan. It was a W, it was a win to take out Nancy Pelosi and finally end her reign over the House. But this takes the W to a whole other level. That's what I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel if you guys are up for it. I'm gonna get out of here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.